This is based on what I've come across after intense research in the last year. And I have found out that the government has retrieved between 10 and 15 actual flying saucers, 3 of which have been in perfect condition, 1 of which they tried to fly. They have between 30 and 50 alien bodies in cryogenic storage. They represent at least 5 different civilizations. 5 different civilizations. 5 different civilizations.
Do you have an interest in the UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena? Have you always been fascinated by cryptids like Bigfoot and Dogman, as well as the paranormal? If this is you, then you've landed here on the right channel. Subscribe down below and become a member of the 401 Files.
Every year, people all around the world are reporting strange phenomena. Whether you're a hardcore believer or a hardcore skeptic, it really doesn't matter. There are still many mysteries left in our past that we have still yet to understand, let alone explain. Terrifying creatures, super advanced beings, and realms that seem only accessible to those who are living in the afterlife. What do we really know? And are the answers to all these questions even obtainable? There's only one way to find out.
So I have an awesome encounter that I've been sitting on for 2 months that I want to share with you guys. And this is a fascinating encounter because I was kind of like a witness, not to it, but to the prior part of what happened. The reason I've waited 2 months is because I didn't know if I could speak openly about this while still in this area making content, and you'll understand why in a minute. So roughly about 2 months ago, I'm here in the national park. I've got my phone out, I'm creating content as I always do. Lily is darting between the trees, living her best life as she always does. After a few hours of filming, I decide that it's time to head home. I start walking towards my car, and for some reason, I looked back over my shoulder and down the track. I saw something walking towards me down the track. Now this was quite a distance, so much so that I couldn't make out what it was. But I knew it looked weird. There was something not right, something off. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, Lily, stay. Lily sits by my side. She's now looking down the track. I'm looking down the track. And this thing is hobbling towards me at a distance, but it doesn't seem right. So I decided I would use my iPhone, because it's got a really good zoom on this camera, to zoom in down the track and spot what the hell this thing was coming towards me. Because I need to know if I need to get Lil on the lead. Does she need to be in the boot? What is this? Because if it's a deer or if it's some other animal, she's going to fly off. And anyway, it turns out it was a dog. But again, zooming in, I could see that something wasn't right with this dog. There was things hanging off the side of it. It looked injured. It looked absolutely exhausted. And when it got closer, it was wearing I think it was high vis or some kind of a coat, but the coat had been shredded. The coat had been pulled here, there and everywhere, and the dog looked like it had been through some kind of a traumatic experience. It was just knackered. Now obviously to me this is very concerning, because here in the national park there are mountain bike trails, and a lot of people here do go on these trails with their dogs running in tow. And you start thinking all sorts of things. You start thinking, okay, I've now got this dog with no owner in sight. It's clearly been through something traumatic. Its coat's ripped to bits and it looks exhausted. Has the owner crashed on one of these trails and is lying in wait for help? Has the dog come to seek that help? You know, you start thinking all these different things. And then about 20-30 minutes later, 2 women on their mountain bikes came down the opposite track.
Yeah, someone is... Surprised you got signal in here.
And so I quickly stopped them and said, look, have you guys seen anybody down that track where you've just come from? Are they looking for a dog? Because this dog's just shown up and I don't know where its owner is. And they said, no, we haven't seen anyone. Like, does it have a name tag on the lead, on the collar? Does it, you know, like, it's obviously been through something. Do you want us to wait around with you and and see if the owner turns up. So I said, yeah, if you will, please, that'd be much appreciated. So another 20, 30 minutes passes, and then out of the forest appears this elderly gentleman. Now, my first impression was that this guy was drunk or under the influence of something, because he was acting sporadic. Now, it could have been the adrenaline. It could have been the fact that, oh my God, you guys, thank you so much. You found my dog. I'm so appreciative. It could have been all those things, but my initial instinct was, whoa, this guy's putting me on edge a little bit. Like, he's acting weird. He's acting, yeah, a bit crazy. As we got talking, me, this elderly gentleman, and these two women that had stuck with me, I realised that this guy was quite normal, but really shaken up. And the woman obviously was more in conversation with the guy. I was just kind of there to look after the dog and tag along. And he said that something grabbed his dog. Now, he didn't say a deer stampled the dog, or a badger or a fox or anything like that. He said something grabbed my dog. Now, that on itself is normal, right? That can happen, especially if your dog is inquisitive and it goes down into a badger set or something like that. These things do happen. They're rare, very, very rare, but they do happen. And so I just thought at this point it was an interesting story. And so he's talking to these women. He said that the dog, which was, I think it was like some kind of a Staffordshire breed, pit bull breed, very elderly dog, gone down this divot in the forest. He'd lost sight of it, and then all hell broke loose. There was commotion, screaming. The dog was in pain, and he said that the dog let out this fearful scream that I've never heard before. And so he rushes over to this divot in the ground, and a light fires off into the sky. Now, he didn't even at that moment in time think, what the hell was that? His initial reaction, he said, was just to get the dog and break this fight up between these two animals that he thought was taking place. There was no animal. There was no animal in this divot. And it was only after that he thought the light was even weird. I'm not sure what those two women was thinking hearing this, because if they're non-believers, if they don't have that mindset, or they're not interested in these subjects, maybe they was trying to make sense of it in the best way they could. I'm not sure what they did in their minds to make sense of this. But for me, my ears perked up straight away, and I was thinking, what the hell? Like, your dog has clearly been through something. Your dog has clearly been through something. The coat is shredded. It looks absolutely exhausted. And you didn't find anything in the ditch, in the ground, and you saw this light flying off into the sky. What the hell is all that about? Now, it gets weirder. It gets weirder. I didn't want to probe too much. I didn't want to ask too many questions, because I never do. When people meet me, I'm sure they will say the same thing. Unless I'm talking to people who are into these genres. Unless I'm talking to people that have already shown me they aren't, going to call me crazy, then I'll open up and speak all day. But usually when I meet someone for the first time, I'm very aloof. I'm very quiet about my beliefs or the weird stuff I talk about. So we take the guy to the help centre, which was 4 or 5 miles away, roughly, from where we was at the time, and we report this incident. Now, one of the guys says, "Oh, was you there? Did you see this?" And I said, "No, I wasn't there. I didn't see this. I was there after the event." He said, "All right, well, I'll still need to take a statement," which was weird, because we're in a national park, but maybe that's protocol. Maybe that is what happens. So I just told my side of the story, that I was in the forest. I was there filming my content for my channel, which I usually do, blah, 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 blah. And in conversation, he just said, "Oh, what's your channel about then, mate?" I said, "Oh, you don't want to know, to be honest." It's like weird things, which are now, given the circumstances, you're going to think I was involved, or, I knew what this was. He said, no, I don't think that at all. I'm just interested. I said, all right, okay, well, I talk about, like, thought-provoking topics, things like UFOs, extraterrestrials. He said, "Oh, you won't be making a video about this though, will you?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I might do. It's quite interesting. I mean, I don't understand what the light thing was about. Oh, the light thing's now." And I was like, "Okay. The light thing's now?" He was like, "No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was a light that he saw shoot off into the sky. I think he'd probably seen the reflection of something coming through the trees." And I'm like, dude, in my head, I'm like, dude, I spend all my time in the forest. If there's one thing I know about the forest, is that very few, if any, reflections are created, because all the colours, all the textures and surfaces here are the opposite of what you need to create a reflection. They dampen light. And that's the be all and end all of it. Like, you don't have any reflective surfaces to bounce light from. He saw the light from the ground go up through the trees. What is reflecting on this mossy surface? I didn't say that. I'd never said any of that, because I felt like if I did, it would, I don't know, take the conversation in a different direction, or maybe make him think of me in a different light. And so I thought, I am going to make a video. I am going to tell this story because it's really, really weird. And I managed to capture some of the events as they unfolded, but yeah, very, very strange. His dog was obviously put through some traumatic experience. His coat was all shredded, it was pulled around, and then a light fires off into the sky. This guy obviously knows that what he saw wasn't normal. I'm not sure if he's willing to come out and say that. I wish I could track the guy down, but in the heat of the moment, sometimes when these things happen, you know, you just want to be a good Samaritan and be there for someone who's in distress. So I never really took his name or his address or probed further into this story, but I thought I would share that with you guys, because that is a prime example of some of the things that can happen here in this national park. And you know, it fascinates me. His dog obviously was in contact with something that wasn't there, and there was a light that rapidly left the area before anybody could see anymore. So yeah, you guys take of that what you will. I've waited 2 months to share this story just because I felt like that was a safe time for him. But if anything more comes of it, I will let you know. Now, the guy who was acting shifty back at the help centre, the guy who told me that the light was nothing, I don't know what to make of that. To me, my initial reaction is that they've obviously heard these stories before. If you're asking for my opinion right now, and I have to tell you what I think, that is what I think. The impression I got was that they've heard of these stories before.
Believe it or not, this isn't the first story that I've heard like this. There has been a series of rumours flying around the park over the last few years. I personally have spoken to some of the visitors who claim to have seen an invisible being. However, I've spoken to others that don't have a clue what I'm talking about. However, these rumours have definitely sparked a wave of curiosity and concern amongst both believers and non-believers alike. As part of my investigation, I have also spoken with many rangers and wildlife experts at the park, and I have found that they too have very mixed responses. All in all, it's extremely difficult to figure out what the hell is going on here, but I'm convinced now more than ever that it's something well worth my time.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you to all the support that I got on the last video. You know, the one where I found the balloon stuck under the root system. And the reason I want to specifically say thank you to everybody commenting and supporting me on that video is because that to me is in the category of out there. Like, that's really out there. And as I mentioned multiple times during that video, what are we even discussing? Like, I don't understand the phenomena. So I just want to clarify a few things, because obviously I'm always getting new people here on the channel all the time. They won't understand my approach. They might not even understand me as a person. And you know, the thing I always say to the old timers here, the guys that have been here and the girls that have been here a long, long time, is I don't believe everything that I talk about. I don't. I discuss a lot of things because I know that I have to be unbiased, unselfish when making YouTube content. There are a lot of people out there in these genres that do believe these things, and just because I don't doesn't mean that I should hold back my thoughts or findings. So yeah, just that's the way I do things, guys. Like, I might talk about things that, you know, I come across as though I'm a hardcore believer, and in actual fact that might not be my opinion at all. So if you are new here on the channel, you'll no doubt be wondering what the hell I'm doing in this specific area. And it's because this area right now where I am here in the UK, not just the UK but all around the world as well, is what we refer to as a hotspot. for some strange reason, there are twice as many, if not 3 times as many reports of high strangeness coming from this exact location. Now, why is that? That fascinates me. And as someone who needs to understand the universe and the world around me, it intrigues me enough to get out and try to get to the bottom of this. Now, do I think I ever will? No, I'm under no illusion. I don't think one day I'm going to come away from this place and have all the answers. I just don't think that's realistic. But to have my own experience, to walk the footsteps of those that have, is enough. There are millions of people that have been in and out of this place and never experienced anything, and that's a great thing. But let me tell you this, people have experienced very strange things that defy understanding, defy logic. And most of those people we will never hear about because it's still a taboo subject. And then there's people that have come forward and tried to share their experiences of what happened to them on that day or that week. And they've been suppressed by people like the National Parks, by the Forestry Commission and by other authorities even higher up the chain than that, because they want tourism. They want people to keep coming back here and enjoying this natural beauty as much and as often as possible because it brings in revenue. And the idea that there could be something happening here or people are going missing here and there is no explanation whatsoever is only going to destroy that image. So I get asked quite a lot of the same questions. Do I believe that there is some kind of 7-foot undiscovered hominid that we know as Bigfoot running around here in the English countryside? And my answer has always been the same. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Do I believe that that creature exists somewhere else in the world? Very possible. That is very, very possible. Very likely. But more than that, the way that I like to think of this is that they're not native species. They're not here all the time. They wasn't originated here on this planet. But for me, I believe that there are such things as wormholes and dimension slips where creatures and beings from wherever else, what other dimension they may be coming from, are able to slip from their world into ours. That's the way I like to think of it, because we really don't know too much about science, right? Oh, well, sorry, let me rephrase that. We know the things we know about science, but there is a whole other world outside of what we know. And I believe there is a hell of a lot of things yet to be discovered, yet to be explained by science. And so for me, wormholes, dimensions, portholes, those things exist in that dark, shaded area outside of what we know. Will we ever know? I have no idea. I have no idea. Will they ever be proven? Will we ever see somebody in real time slip through one of these things, just walking through the forest one day? I have no idea. I have no idea. But I do genuinely believe that they exist, and that's how they're getting here. And it must be a purpose thing. Like, I've often speculated in the past that maybe they don't even know that they're doing this. Maybe that they just pop into our world one day and they're more terrified than we are. And lo and behold, they pop straight back into their world. They go back and tell stories to their native species on their planet about these bald-looking apes that walked upright, and nobody believes them. I've spoke about that many of times, but over the years, I think that it has to be more of a purposely done act. I think that these beings, these creatures that are appearing here on this planet and then disappearing, know all too well what they're doing and how to do it. And the reason I believe that is because for something or someone to pop through a wormhole is a big enough feat in itself, right? If it was done accidentally. And so for that accident then to repeat itself at the right time when someone spots them or, you know, discovers their craft, that would be too coincidental for me. So therefore I believe that they are doing this purposely. They've mastered some kind of a way to travel between the dimensions. you guys can no doubt see, behind me, it's extremely dark. In the next 15-20 minutes, it will be almost pitch black in this area. It's weird because the ambient light right before my eyes is changing. Like I can see from 1 minute to the next, the difference in ambient light. So much so that the iPhone I'm using right now as well is trying to max itself out. It's trying to tap into some of those inbuilt settings and save any lost remnants of that light that's coming through the tree canopy. It's doing that for you guys to see me, but obviously in doing so, the footage is becoming grainy. So I've had to turn this red light on. And I just want to give a shout out as well to one of our subscribers that recommended I started doing that, using the red light. The plus side to using a red light, obviously, is that it doesn't affect my night vision, my natural inbuilt night vision. So if I was to turn that torch off now, I wouldn't struggle. There would be no adjustment phase with my eyes. I'd still be able to see everything around me. The downside to that is that it throws off some really weird, creepy shadows. And in an area like this that's heavily wooded, these trees can quickly become figures, people, creatures. And so I'm constantly stopping. I've got my head on a swivel and I'm thinking that I see things that aren't there. Now that's not a great thing in an area like this that is notorious for cryptids and other strange phenomena, because it's got my heart rate up into the hundreds. Now this is a dark skies national park, which basically means that the light pollution in the surrounding area is very minimal, if any at all. At a rough guess, 10-15 minutes from now, all the noises that the daytime creatures and critters have been making will come to an end. They'll all settle down for the night and hand over to the nocturnal animals. In the UK, we have things like badgers, foxes, bats, rabbits. Those are the typical nighttime nocturnal animals. But in an area like this, we know there are other things as well that come out during nighttime hours. Now, would I want to see one? Absolutely. But there are conditions. Because if we're being realistic, we're talking about a creature that has the head almost roughly the same size of a horse, walks bipedally, upright like us humans do, has the ability to disappear and vanish without a trace, talk telepathically. And that is a terrifying creature. That is a terrifying whatever it is. So yes, I would like to see something. Yes, I would love to experience something on one of my night outings like this. But from a distance, we've got to be realistic, because to see anything up close and personal in an area like this, of that description, would change your life forever. And there's no coming back from that. Once you've had that experience and you've seen that with your own two eyes, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It doesn't matter what the debunkers or the skeptics are saying. You know. So tonight, when I'm walking through this area, I'm going to tread very lightly. I'm going to stop, give myself plenty of time to absorb the noises, and I'm going to film. Because you guys deserve it. I'm intrigued enough to do that and discover more about the world around me. And it's a fascinating thing. When curiosity, passion, and fear collide. Makes us do crazy things. So while I'm winding the night down, I thought this would be the perfect chance for me to share my experience again with you guys, because I do understand that there are a lot of people turning up new here to the channel who've never heard my experience. And so when I make videos from time to time, touching on what happened to me, the details of that day, you know, it can make people feel quite alienated if they haven't heard the full story. And so for the guy that messaged me last week over on the Facebook 401 Files page, asking me to go into details, this one's for you. And ironically as well, where I am right now, in this wooded area, is almost identical to the woods in which I had my experience. So that's quite creepy. But anyway, here goes. When I was 9 or 10 years old, it will have been 1997, around about that time period. It was a beautiful, hot summer that we was experiencing, and at that point in my life, I was a member of the Cub Scouts. I was always an outdoorsy kid, loved bushcraft, loved trying to learn how to build fires and shelters from sticks. That was just me. That is what I enjoyed doing. And so the Cub Scouts suited me right down to the ground. And while in the Cubs, we used to go to a place almost once a year called Snowball Plantation. Now, this wasn't a huge national park or, a forest that covered many millions of acres. This was just a relatively decent-sized wooded area that was there for the purpose of Cub Scouts. It was where all the Cub Scout groups would meet up once a year for a weekend or two, and we would practice bushcraft. We would set up tents, we would play games, that kind of stuff. And so just like any other trip that had been and gone before that one, it went brilliantly. I really had a great time. And again, like I said, it was a baking hot summer. So as a 9 or 10-year-old boy, that suited me perfectly. It was just a great time to be out with friends, acting like idiots. My experience, however, happened on the way home. As far as I'm aware, while in Snowball Plantation, while on that camp over the weekend, nothing out of place, nothing out of the ordinary took place. And yeah, like I said, it was on the way home. I was on a minibus, and the Cub Scout leader at the time stood up and said that we're going to be pulling over in a minute. If anybody wants to jump off for a quick pee stop, quick break, toilet break, this would be a great chance to do it. Because once we pull off, we're not stopping again until we get back to the base. So me and my friend who was sitting at the back of the bus, we decided to jump off the bus and go stand at the side of the road to take a pee. And being the age that I was, standing shoulder to shoulder with my friend taking a pee was quite embarrassing. So I decided that I would move away from him a bit in front of where we were standing, and up a grass embankment. There was a grass embankment. It came just past chest height. And I decided that I would go up that and stand on the top of that taking a pee. While I was standing on top of the grass embankment, I started to look through the woods, and I noticed that there was a little outhouse, a little brick building. Now, my first initial thought was that this was somehow a tool shed, or maybe a smaller outhouse that was part of once a bigger building. But one thing I do know, it was clearly disused. There was bricks missing, there was ivy growing all over it, and it hadn't been used for a long time. Nature was starting to take this thing back. And so that baffled me, because I was thinking, well, where is the rest of the building? Like, where's the bigger part of this smaller outhouse? And so I started looking around, trying to find it, and I noticed something move. I noticed something move over to my left. Either my left or my right, do not hold me to that. My memory on that part there is foggy, but I'm pretty sure it was over to my left. And what I saw move was a creature. It was bipedal, it was hunched over, and it was olive green from head to toe. Now, it had over proportionally sized limbs. Like, these limbs, the arms specifically, came past the waist when it walked, and they kind of swayed in this weird motion. Now, I can't tell, looking back, if this thing was trying to keep a low profile. Was it trying to stay hidden? Was it trying to stay sneaky as it moved through the woods? Or was that just the way it walked because it was so dangly, like hunched over? I'm not sure. One thing I do know is that it saw me. I know that much. It glanced up in my direction. We made eye contact. This thing had large eyes, larger than a human's, but not like the typical alien greys that we see. They were black, and it didn't seem phased. That's always bothered me. Whenever I retell this story, or whenever I've thought back over the years to that point in time, it always bothered me that it never seemed phased by me being there at the top of this embankment. We made eye contact, it put its head down, and it carried on walking in the same direction that it was travelling. And my initial reaction, believe it or not, was that this is a prank. This is all one big elaborate joke. They're all trying to get one over on me, and I'm going to do something really amazing because I'm going to play some reverse psychology. I'm going to pretend that I never saw it. This whole elaborate joke that they've put in place to scare me will have been for nothing because I didn't even see it. So I got back on the bus and I waited. I waited for somebody, whether it be the Cub Scout leader or one of the kids on the bus, to say, we got you, we tricked you. And I waited and I waited, and nothing was ever mentioned about this green creature walking through the forest, hunched over. Really, really weird experience. Now, to me, if you ask me, and I have to give you an answer to what I believe this thing was, it was extraterrestrial. I didn't see any scales. Its skin looked almost leathery, like a dolphin's skin type thing. I would say, if I had to try and describe what the skin was like, I would say more dolphin-like, that leathery kind of texture, but olive green. And yeah, the weirdest thing is that for years and years and years and years after the event, right up until my late 20s, early 30s, I totally forgot about it. I didn't even know this experience had happened. You know, it wasn't even in the back of my subconscious. It wasn't even like it was there if I needed to call upon it to go over the details. I just didn't remember anything from that day, or this creature, or this experience. Then, like I said, one day at work in my late 20s, early 30s, boom, it just hit me. And it hit me as vividly and as strong as any memory that I've ever had. You know, if you were to tell me that the birth of my 3 children never happened, I wouldn't believe that, because it's so ingrained in my life. It's such a big thing that happened to me and a big part of who I am. I know it happened with every ounce of my being. And that is the intensity that this experience had on me. I remembered everything. I remembered all the details, even down to the finest thing, like what flowers were growing through the forest floor at that time. You know, it's a bizarre encounter. And I've come to terms with the fact that there will always be more questions than answers as to what that thing was, what it was doing there. And was it a chance encounter? You know, did I just catch this thing off guard? Did I just run up the embankment and wow, you know, it wasn't expecting me to be there on that day? Or was it expecting me to be there on that day and I was a chosen one? I don't know. People have put many different theories to me over the years. But I can't really speculate, because if I do, I'm lying. I really don't have the answers. I just know what I saw, and I know it wasn't from this planet.
Whether you believe in strange phenomena or not, you can't deny the fact that similarities are repeated throughout millions of people from all around the world. And this isn't something new either. These reports have been spookily similar way before the days of AI or clickbait. The Egyptians didn't know what a viral post was, yet they still told very similar stories. The Betty and Barney Hill UFO abduction was long before the birth of the internet. But even in today's world, we have so much technology at our fingertips that we could easily dream up whatever story we wanted. Yet the most credible witnesses are still singing the same tune. As always, guys, I will leave you to make of that what you will. But until next time, take it easy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one.